This is Dan, and this is the Napkin Academy, and this lesson is how to combine the two frameworks we've learned about so far, the 6x6 and the squid, to put them together to create a completely new tool we're going to call the Visual Thinking Codex. Remember, we had two frameworks, 6x6, squid. One allows us to look deep at a problem. One allows us to look broadly at a problem. Well, let's think about something for a moment. Imagine that we were looking at our problem or our idea, and we thought, wouldn't it be interesting if we could use both the 6x6 and the squid? And wouldn't it be interesting if we could superimpose those two on each other so that we had a way, a kind of a matrix, that showed us every possible combination of these 6 elemental pictures and the pictures that emerge from going through the exercise in the squid? Wouldn't it be incredible if we could come up with one ultimate template of pretty much every single possible picture we could ever make? And guess what? We can. And in order to do that, we come up with something that I call the Visual Thinking Codex. So what the Codex really is, it is a map. It is a map that combines two ideas. The first idea was the 6x6. The second idea was the squid. So what do we do? Do we remember way back to our lesson when we were talking about where in our 6x6 when we drew a map? Do we remember how we started? One of the first things that we can do when we draw a map, what defines a map, is that it has a coordinate system. Let's go ahead, since the 6x6 represented depth, and make our vertical axis the 6x6. What would that look like? Here it is. The 6x6, the 6 elements, become our vertical axis. Now, pause for a moment. I'm going to ask you to do something. As you can see on our small screen, it's going to be very difficult. We really have to squint to try to see all of the codex. But that's not a problem, because what I'd like you to do is go ahead and stop for a moment and make a printout. The next lesson, which is the codex as a printout. I want to include the entire codex so you can see how it gets built. So go ahead and stop. Once you've got a printout, come back to exactly this point and let's pick it up again. 1. Who and what? Our little portraits. 2. How much? Our charts. 3. Where? Our map. 4. When? Our timeline. 5. How? Our flowchart. 6. Why? Our plot. If the 6x6 was our vertical, what's going to be our horizontal? Well, it's going to be the squid. So, simple, qualitative, vision, individual, difference. Those are going to be the 5 frames that make up our horizontal coordinate system. Now, what we're going to start to do is map in all the pictures that represent the combinations of each one of these, and we're going to fill in this entire matrix. So let's go ahead and start with just this part, and let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. Let's zoom in a little bit. So we're looking just at the upper left-hand corner. So again, 6x6 represents our vertical, squid represents our horizontal. So could we imagine, what is the picture that we would draw if we wanted to create a who or what? We draw a portrait. Can we draw a simple portrait? Well, of course we can. What might be a simple portrait of a who? Well, how about a little face? And what might be a simple portrait of a what? Well, what would be a good what? How about a mountain? How about our famous Mount Fuji over here? Okay, so we've got a simple portrait of a who and a what. So what we're going to do is continue mapping together each of the verticals and the horizontals and coming up with the corresponding picture that matches. If we do that, again, you're going to need to look at your printout. This is what we end up with right here. Here we have populated every row and every column with the combination of the elemental picture type from the 6x6 with the corresponding type of picture as determined by the squid. So let's just look at these real quickly for a moment and go through some. Who's and what's, we've got lots of portraits, simple, qualitative, a vision portrait, an individual, a change portrait. Well, here, let me blow that up a little bit. A change portrait might say, well, this is how we start. This is how, but the difference we want is something like that. So we can do that with portraits. Now let's talk about how much. Let's talk about our charts for a moment. Can I draw a simple chart? Well, of course I can. I can just draw a simple little bar chart. When I make my timeline, can I make a simple timeline? Of course I can. Can I make a timeline that shows change? Of course I can. And so on, filling in every one of the cells of our codex. But as we remember, the whole point of the squid isn't just that we talk about what the letters stand for. We remember that it was also binary. That is to say, there's also the opposite. What was the opposite of simple? Elaborate. What was the opposite of quality? Quantity. What was the opposite of vision? Execution. What was the opposite of individual? Comparison. What was the opposite of change? As is. So could we then draw in a series of pictures that represent the other side of the squid for each one of our elemental picture types? So for example, could we draw an elaborate who or what portrait? Well, of course we can. Rather than drawing my little smiley face, imagine if I said, okay, the person I'm really interested in looks in this case a little bit like Frankenstein, someone who's wearing this shirt, has got on a tie, has this particular haircut, has, I don't know, their sleeves rolled up. We can go into a lot of detail. We could make it very elaborate. Could I draw a more elaborate picture of my mountain? Well, of course I can. I can show all the individual peaks. I can show exactly the snow. I can show the rolling hills, the plains that lead up to them. I could show my sun. I could show lots of clouds. The point I want to make is it's possible for each type of elemental picture to make both extremes as represented by the squid. And if we did that and continued through every cell, what would we end up with? We would end up with the full codex. Again, please look at your printout in order to look at this yourself. It's too small here, but go ahead and look at that printout or look at it full screen. Go ahead and download the PDF if you're on a mobile device or you don't have access to a printer. Go ahead and switch back and forth to the PDF and look at this full screen so that you can see what we've actually done. I want you to spend some time looking at the codex and discovering for yourself what is the value of it, because as you can see, we've got dozens of different pictures that are here. They do really represent pretty much every elemental picture we can ever create, from portraits that are simple, portraits that are elaborate, maps that are individual versus maps that make a comparison, simple flowcharts through elaborate flowcharts, through flowcharts that show one thing, through flowcharts that compare others. Multivariable plots. Can we make a simple multivariable plot? Sure we can. Can we make a multivariable plot that shows not just why things are, but sort of the execution of why we were able to draw them that way? A really elaborate, multidimensional, multivariable plot. Yes, we can. We can make all of these pictures. This is why I saved this to the end. I don't want this to get anybody steamed up. The point here is not to overcomplicate. On the contrary, the whole point of the codex is to give us one place where we can go and say, I can see here pretty much every possible drawing I could make. I'm actually going to relax because I know that this represents just about the entire universe of pictures. Now, I've just taken quite a bit of time to go ahead and explain the codex, and I think it's only fair to go ahead and give one quick example of how do we use this thing in the real world. So let's go ahead and take the codex for a quick test, and let's just make up very rapidly a simple little business story. And here's one that I've been thinking about. Let's say that our company is a soda company. Okay? we make lots of soda. And our main competitor is another soda company. This is us, and this is them. And what I want to do is I want to try to understand why our market share seems to be falling and their market share seems to be going up. And I think what I want to do is try to understand where do I fit in the market compared to my competitor. So there is a key word right here. Where do I fit into the market? So let's go ahead and look at the Codex and see how I might use it. Well, is this a who or what problem? Yes, it is, but at its essence, is it a how much problem? A little bit, but really it's a where problem. Where do we fit? Let's be really clear. Where do we and our competitor sit in the market? So the point is we're going to end up drawing a map. We want to draw a where map that maps us in comparison to our competitor. And let's go ahead and start with a simple map. So let's go ahead and create a simple map, very simple, that just shows the overview of what we're talking about. This is our soda business, and here's our competitor's soda business, and we are both sitting squarely inside the soda market. So far so good. We're kind of sharing the market space, kind of even, but we have started to move into a new market. And there we have a map, a very simple map of what's going on in the business. Well, let's say that that's not enough. That's not showing us enough. So what we want to do is go ahead and make an elaborate map. So let's now go ahead and make a more elaborate map. Let's say that this in black is the soda market between ourselves and our competitor. And the market space is here for soda. And we've been competing neck and neck. So we decided to do something else. That what we've decided to do is also move into the canned water market. So here's the water market over here. So now our company is doing both, serving the water market and the soda market. But perhaps what's been happening is that we recognize that our part of the soda market has actually been shrinking as we've started to focus on water. And now we need to start to think in this map about what is our competitor doing. Our competitor has not moved into the water market as we have. Our competitor has continued to expand their share of the soda market, and they might be growing over here, actually shifting the soda market away. So the question we want to ask ourselves is, as we look at this more elaborate map, what do we want to do about it? Do we want to continue to push into this new market, or do we want to try to move back into our old market? So these are the kind of questions that start to emerge on our more elaborate map. And that is an introduction to the Visual Thinking Codex that combines 6x6 and the squid to come up with a single matrix that includes the elements of every type of basic picture that we have the ability to draw. Now in our next lesson, we're going to go ahead and exercise the Codex in great detail with a case study and figure out exactly how do we use this thing. Yeah.